Hey, this is Kirk Walden, and welcome to Coffee with Kirk on the Pregnancy Help Podcast. It's great to be with you today, and today's title, very simply, is You Are Just Like My Dentist, and I Appreciate You. Kind of odd, I know, but think about it for a second. We're going to talk about my dentist in just a minute and how this all relates to what we do in our pregnancy help medical clinics, resource centers, and maternity homes. But think about this. A lot of people are afraid when they go to the dentist. They know that it could very well be uncomfortable, even if it's just a simple cleaning, or they may have an issue that they're dealing with that is frightening and they don't know how the ending is going to go. It's very difficult to have somebody put things in your mouth that seemingly don't belong there. And at the same time, when someone comes to our ministry, they're often facing, understating this, a very uncomfortable time in their lives. And it is shaking things up for them. So there is a parallel there. And as I thought about that parallel, I thought about my dentist. And I pray that this is an affirming podcast for you, that you listen to what I've got to say about my dentist of all things. But you begin to see, you know what? We're doing that. That's who we are. And I want you to plant in that ground and say, look, we're doing some things right and we can be confident in this. And you may find a couple of things and say, hey, we can do that too. Because I believe what I've seen in my dentist mirrors what we can do in pregnancy help ministry. Because in our ministry, we're both professional, but we must be personable in order to best connect with those who come in our door. Now, I've got kind of a long-term relationship with my dentist. It's only been, about 10 years. I guess you can call it a long-term relationship now, but I trust him. I trust him with everything now. Trust him with my kids, all that stuff. And it all started when I had needed a double root canal on my two front teeth. I know this sounds like TMI, but I want you to walk with me through this because I was with a good dentist who's doing a good job. But when it came to that double root canal, he struggled. There were a lot of problems. I was in the dentist chair for about 4 hours and had to Novocaine me or whatever they do a couple of times. And finally, we had to give up. I wasn't able to get that done. And so I decided, you know what, I need to check a second opinion. So I asked my mom, who was still alive at that time, who's your dentist? And she told me about this guy. And I tried him out. And I went in there and said, here's the deal. They tried to do the double root canal. It doesn't work. And here's what the dentist said that told me this is the guy that I want to hang with when it comes to my teeth. He said, he looked at it, looked at the x-rays, did everything. And then he says, you know what? I can't do this. That one's for a specialist. And so I'm going to refer you over here. And I promise you he can get it done. Because my other dentist, again, good dentist, great person, all that stuff, they were trying to do it themselves. And they did not refer me out. And again, it failed. Well, here was this new dentist who I didn't know, who admitted right up front, this is only for a specialist. He sent me to a specialist. Interestingly enough, I'm a golfer, and this dentist, this whatever he is, specialized dentist, was a golfer too. He was going to go watch the Masters that day. He was about to head out to Augusta, Georgia to watch the Masters the next day. And he said, we'll get this done pretty quick. Once he done me up, in 15 minutes, the job was done and I was out of there. And I was fine. And so I began thinking about this dentist who had given me this honest opinion. Look, I'm not able to do certain things. Let's refer you to who can. And automatically I had trust. And so I started going to this dentist. And I've been there ever since. And I'll tell you some things that this dentist does which makes me feel like a very important person. And it all starts when I go in the lobby. Obviously, the receptionist behind the counter greets me, hey, Mr. Walden, how are you doing today? And all those kind of things. And as I sit down in the lobby, which is never a long wait, there's usually worship music in the background. I'm not advising this or not advising this. You may, I believe, if I remember right, it's often just instrumental worship music in the background. But it's just a great atmosphere. If I look up on the screen, they do have a television in there. It's usually something very much background, and it's uplifting and positive, those sorts of things. But I just sit there and I feel okay because I've gotten a good greeting. They seem happy to see me. They know who I am. And I think that's what we do at our centers. We greet people well. And by the way, as I look around me at my dentist's office, there aren't a bunch of pamphlets that tell me how to deal with gingivitis or something like that. They're not giving me any sales pitches. They're not telling me what to do. As I said, they're not a bunch of any medical pamphlets there. And I think, what about us? What do we do in our lobbies? We don't need to educate in our lobbies, and my dentist doesn't do that there. He's going to do that himself when I walk in the door. So I don't need any extra pamphlets or magazines to tell me what I need to think about getting more dental care. So I sit in the lobby, and within a few minutes, somebody opens the door, greets me with a smile, and says, hey, Mr. Walden. They should call me Kirk. I keep telling them that, and they won't do it. Come on back. And I do, and they always ask me how I'm doing that day, and those sorts of things. And I think, we make at our ministries some really good impressions. It is what you do. And if you want to know why you're different from those who end pregnancies, this is one of the key reasons, is because we make great first impressions. And as we build on that, and as we hold each other, as we encourage each other to make good first impressions, we only get better. That's what I see at my dentist. And that's why I keep going back, because I feel good when I walk in the door. They take me in, and as I sit down, it's not surprising to see the dentist himself, if he's not in the middle of a patient, to walk by me and go, hey, Kirk, it's good to see you again. How you doing? And all this kind of stuff. As we settle people into our rooms, whether we call them counseling rooms or whether we call them client rooms, whatever we call them, I think one of the key things we can do is just notice the people who come in, the clients, the patients who come in our door. And if someone who's not even dealing with them directly yet has a good word for them, it makes a difference. That's what my dentist does. And I love seeing that happen. I'll sit down, they'll ask about my day and all those sorts of things. And I know that in our ministries, because it's so serious when someone comes in the door, that it's not easy just to say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? They're scared to death. You know that, and I know that. But I think about this on follow-up visits. How are we greeting people on follow-up visits so that they build a bond with us? How are we communicating with them, bringing them into rooms? I'm not here to give advice, but I think sometimes we can look at each other. Let's say we're in a room listening to this, look at each other and go, hey, what could we do to make that experience when they come back, especially for a follow-up? Because a lot of times, most of our follow-up visits are either something with bright course or a follow-up ultrasound or something like that. What are we doing to make sure they know we know them, we love them, we care about them? And again, no advice here, but I think it's a great brainstorming idea to sit down and say, hey, what are we saying to people so that they know that we know them? As our CEO walking by and checking in, hey, I'm Pam, I'm the CEO here, and I just wanted to say hi and thank you for coming. What are we doing to foster that bond as we build our ministries? Because I think as we foster that bond, what we're doing is, in a strange marketing way, building our branding so that they will tell others. So this is what we do well, and maybe we can do better. I don't know. But at my dentist's office, they're always looking to me. In fact, looking to me in a positive way. In fact, I have missed a couple of appointments over the years. I just forget, and I've got it right there on my calendar, and I forget. It's terrible. I know. I feel bad, and I've gotten that call from the office. And you know what they don't do? They don't shame me for it. They say, hey, I think you were supposed to be here at 9 this morning. Are you okay? Oh, no, I'm just forgetful is what I am. I'm doing fine, and I am so sorry. They don't bill me for it. Now, I know you're not billing anybody anyway, but they say, hey, why don't we set up another time? Let's see what we can do here. And they do send reminders, so I really feel guilty about not being there. But they set me up again, and when I come in, it's cheerful. It's as if nothing ever happened. Now, if I did this every other time, I know they would have a policy. But it's happened maybe twice over 10 years. And I think about, how do we respond to those who miss an appointment? I'm pretty sure, I don't know all of us, I've been in about 600 centers, but I think we respond well, and I want to affirm that. But also at the same time say, this is very important. Obviously, we can't have people missing appointments and missing appointments and missing appointments. I get that. But at the same time, how do we handle that? What is our go-to procedure, I guess, when somebody misses an appointment? Some we can't contact, I know that, but those that we can, how do we deal with that? I will tell you this, my dentist deals with that in such a positive way. I work really hard to make sure I'm there on time, to make sure I'm a few minutes early, to make sure I don't overlook an appointment. And the other day, I'll just tell you this, the other day I was walking out of the dentist's office. I had just something going on in my mouth that wasn't quite right. And Jen, my wife, said, "Hey, you need to get that checked out." And my dentist, he took a look and he said, "It's not really a thing." He said, "We're going to see you in a few months anyway, no problem." And he said, "It's probably this, and this is what we'd be looking for, and there's not anything you can really do about it. It's not a big deal." I said, "Okay, fine." I walk out, go to the billing person, and she says, "Oh, no charge, it's taken care of." Wow. I go in there, I make kind of an emergency appointment. I called one day, they got me in the next day. And this is a thriving practice. They've doubled in size, seen a lot of people all the time. And yet they see me for nothing, just to check something out because I'm a regular patient and they care about me. But on my way out the door, and by the way, how can we make room for somebody when they need room? How do we respond to somebody when they need room? I've got a feeling you're doing really good at this too, but it is important. Some people will take advantage of it, and we have to deal with that. But if somebody's got to be seen for some reason, are we making a way for them to do that and doing it in a positive, helpful way? I think as we do this, we grow and we build our branding again as we do that. But here I am walking out after that quick visit, and I see the person who's going to do the billing, and she says, no charge. And I started to step out the door. And then I thought about it, and I thought, they do so much for me. And I turned to her and I said, "Hey, I just want to tell you, billing person, that you change lives." And she kind of looked at me kind of surprised, and I said, "You really do." I said, dentist is kind of a harrowing experience for some people, and you've always got a smile, which she does, always got a wonderful countenance. And you make people's lives better just by doing what you do on a regular basis. I said, I don't want to make too much of a deal out of it and go overboard, but that is hugely important to a lot of people. And she looked at me and said, "Oh, Mr. Walden." I've told her to call me Kirk too, but she comes out of her cubicle area, opens the door, throws out her arms and wants to give me a hug, which of course I'm a hugger. I will do that. And I gave her a hug, and then I said a couple of more things, and she hugged me again, tears rolling down her cheeks. And I think she does care about her job. And I'm not quite sure how this relates to you, but she, because of what she does for me, made a difference for me so much that I noticed it and said something. And I guess that's our connection point here, is that what are you doing? And I believe you're doing it, but recognize what you are doing, which changes the countenance of those who come in the door. Because she changes my countenance. I can't help but smile when I see her. She's probably a few years older than me. I don't know, but she always makes me smile. She always has a smile for me, is very kind, even when she's telling me it's going to be an exorbitant amount of money. And I'm happy to pay it. And I walk away and I go, how did I just pay that much money? And I'm smiling about it. Because she made it happen. She was kind and she was helpful and made it happen. Let me tell you something else my dentist has done. He asks about me. He knows what I do for a living. He knows that I am a volunteer with Heartbeat International, and he is connected with Heartbeat because of that. And I won't go into all the details, but I got a call from HBI because of him, my dentist. And it was a very positive phone call. Said, do you know this guy? And I go, yes, I do. He's my dentist. Oh, well, let me tell you something about him. It's great news. Well, he cares about what I do. And he thinks about what I think about sometimes. Now, we're on the same side of the aisle, I guess, when we look at social issues, and that's that happens. But he asks extra questions about different things going on in the life community. And as he does, he asks questions with a lot of thought. Now, you can't do that with those who come in your door, necessarily, but he found a connection point with me. That's what he did. He found that as a connection point and thinks to ask about it. And I think you're doing this, but how can we be intentional about finding connection points with those who come in our door? What questions are we asking to find connection points? He asked about what I do for a living, but another time we talked about our shared love of history. And he talked about books he's reading. He's got a stack of books by his bedside, he says, and he's reading this book and that book, history book. And I've given him some ideas about who I read when it comes to history, and he's given me his ideas. Okay, great. We talk about this most times when I go in there. But he went the extra mile. I was just sitting at home one night, and I hear the doorbell ring, and I go to the front door, and there's my dentist. He's probably 25 minutes from my house. And he says, well, I was in the area. I'm sure he was. He had a hardback book, a biography of a great historical leader from the Revolutionary War. And he says, here, I just thought you'd like to read this. And I read every page. Now, how many dentists go to somebody's house and give them a book? Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't spend that much money at his office to have him coming to my house. But we become friends over this time. Now, I know you've got certain boundaries that you need to deal with. You don't need to be going to patients' homes and bringing them books. But what is that? What do you know about a patient that you can do for them to build that connection? Because as I look at my dentist, I think, would I go anywhere else ever? He would have to take a sledgehammer to my teeth and knock them all out before I go elsewhere. He can make a mistake and I'll stay with him. He can have a bad day and I'll stay with him because I know his heart, and his staff reflects this. You see it in everybody you go. I've never run into somebody who's having a bad day in that office. And I think our culture is the same way. And I want to affirm this in you. And at the same time say, hey, what are we thinking? What are these connection points? What do we know about that patient or client that we can do or maybe give them? Do we have a fund for this where we can give them something that would build that connection, where they would say, hey, yeah, I remember these people because they helped me at a tough time, and they not only helped me, but they did something that went beyond simply serving me. What is that thing we can do? When could we sit around in a circle in our office or something and say, hey, what can we do? How can we be Kirk's dentist today? I know that sounds weird, but that's what I think about. I really believe this is who we are. We're the people who build incredible connections with our clients and patients. And as we do, we build that bond where they don't want to go anywhere else. And I'm thinking, how can we be, we're already doing this, but how can we be a little more intentional in this area? My dentist found a way to be a little more intentional, and it makes all the difference for me. And I think, how can we be, as a ministry, as I said, a little more intentional? Because you know what? You are just like my dentist in so many ways, and yet there is not one of us in a ministry, and I was thinking about this in several areas today, there's not one of us who's working in ministry who can't find a way to be just 1% more intentional as we go forward in building that bond with those who come in the door. I think this is one of the most telling characteristics of our ministries, which separate us from those who oppose us, whether they are an organization that opposes us, whether they're a clinic which opposes us, whether they are a special interest group that opposes us. When we build these bonds, and we always challenge ourselves to strengthen these bonds in any way we can, I think we take one step closer to building a culture where every life is nurtured and celebrated. And you know what? You're the foundation for this in our entire culture. You are the foundation because you are on the ground. You are working with clients and patients who are in that difficult situation to where going to the dentist is nothing compared to what they are doing. And yet you reach out. You build these bonds. You're already doing it. My encouragement is to keep doing what you're doing. And as you do, look at each other in the eye and say, what can we do to be just 1% more intentional to those who come in the door? Kirk is not leaving his dentist. Let's make sure our clients and patients never leave us. Until it's time, obviously, the 2 years or 3 years, whatever. But you know what I mean. Their bond is with us. The bond they have with us is so strong, they wouldn't dream of going anywhere else. We can't do that with everybody. I know my dentist has had patients. I'm sure they've left for whatever reason. That happens. But he does everything on his end to build that relationship. And as we do everything on our end, we can look in the mirror and say, God, we've done our very best. Now you do your work in the lives of those we see. So I appreciate you because you're just like my dentist. I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you need to go to the dentist, may yours be just like mine. Thank you. And I'll look forward to talking to you next time on Coffee with Kirk.